So anyone who knows me knows that this is very much out of my comfort zone. I'm not one to typically be a really big speaker, but normally I'm not much to have a lot to say. I normally keep to myself, but those are some things that you can't keep to yourself. A lot of y'all know that I went through a really rough patch a couple months ago. Some people have heard this testimony. Some people haven't heard this testimony. I wasn't planning on tonight being the night that I come down and I actually film this. As you can tell, I just came from work. I've got dirty clothes on and I don't look my best, but that doesn't matter when it comes to God's timing, and God says to do it, you got to do it. So I grew up in church all of my life, and it was nothing that was really forced on me. I enjoyed it, but I don't think it was until last May that I really knew what church was for. Like I said, I grew up in church my whole life. I've been a singer all my life. But that's usually as far as it had gone for me. I went to church, and that was it. Going to church felt more like a routine than it did anything else. If I was to describe my relationship with God, I would describe it compared to a Pharisee. I'd follow all the rules, but then that was about it. Beyond that, there was nothing. I went to church my whole life, mostly because of the reason that I didn't want to go to hell. There would be people that I would run into, or I would hear their testimonies about how much God had did for them in their lives and how much they loved Jesus and how much they loved God. And it always confused me. I never really understood what they meant by that, because to me, God was not someone you were friends with. God was someone that you were scared of and that you followed because you really didn't want to go to hell. But He wasn't someone that you would say, that you love and that He's a friend to you. It blew my mind when people would say that. And honestly, I would be like, what God are you serving? Because the God I follow is scary. He was someone that had hell been out of the equation, I wouldn't have followed Him. I would have been, doing my own thing. But because of that fear, I did follow Him. And so I lived that life. I believed that I was saved. And honestly, I would judge the people who didn't do things the way I would do them. I was as far as they might have been, and they might have even been closer to God than I was. And yet, if they made one single mistake, I was Phariseeing all over them. I mean, I would be the first one to say, you should be doing better. You are supposed to be a Christian, and you go to church. And here I was. I had no idea who even God was. I had no clue. Growing up in church, I had always heard the term, well, once you start to follow God, well, then the devil's going to be after you. And I remember thinking, the devil hasn't been after me yet. I seem like I don't think I'm going to go to hell. I mean, I'm saved. I think I'm okay right here. I don't want to draw close to God, because if I draw close to God, then I know Satan's going to be after me. But if I draw away from God, then I know I'm going to go to hell. So I'm going to stay right here. Right here is comfortable. I'm not having to be crazy like some of those Christians out there and be preaching on the streets. Like, I'm okay, just right here. And that's as far as I wanted to take it. And so for a while of living like that, I felt, for whatever reason, this guy had reached out to Colin to ask us if we wanted to start going to this youth Bible study, and it was called Monday at Lamar's. And the first time I showed up there, I remember thinking, like, hold up, what's going on? Like, God is love, like God, like it seemed so much different to me when they were saying these things, because I felt like y'all aren't always scared that God's gonna punish you and send you to hell, and that you're gonna do one thing wrong, and you know the world's gonna end from you doing that one thing wrong. Like y'all really have a relationship with God. And so I knew that there was something in me that wanted more, but I felt like even though I kept messing up, I felt like there was no coming back from that. I thought, what's the point in following God if all I'm gonna do is serve Him, mess up, come back to Him, mess up, repent, mess up? I felt like that God wouldn't want me for doing that. I felt like there was no point in me continuing that routine if all I was going to do is go back to sin. I wanted to be out of sin. I wanted to be out of sin. I wanted to have a relationship with God, but it was just that sin that kept having me bound. And so finally, after thinking that, I finally got to a point where I thought, okay, I'll come to Christ whenever I can finally clean myself up and quit sinning. I'm going to come to Christ. When me and Colin get married, I'm going to get serious about it. I'm not going to do this back and forth thing. I'm going to get serious about it. Well, a couple months pass by, and May rolls around. Me and Colin are doing good. I'm feeling good. I'm excited. We're about to get married. Like this is it. Like we're so excited to start this journey of our lives. Well, May 22nd comes around. We get married. It's like the best thing ever to happen to me. And we immediately after our wedding decide to go to our honeymoon, which was in Gulf Shores. And so we start the trip up there. Mom and Dad ended up going on vacation around the same time as us, so they ended up following us up there. All is good in the world. Like, I'm excited. Meanwhile, following God, my promise back to God, that wasn't even in my brain. I done forgot that I even told God that I was going to draw close to God once I got married. Because I mean, it's a day after, it's a day after my wedding. Like, who's thinking of that? I can tell you who is thinking. I can tell you exactly who is thinking. So the next day, we drive on into Gulf Shores. Everything's good. We go to the beach a little bit. We go back to our condo, and then something clicked. I couldn't tell you to this day, could not tell you what had clicked. But I felt like something was wrong. Something was bad wrong. And I couldn't pinpoint it. Couldn't pinpoint what that was. And so I ended up, it's late into the night that I just feel like something bad is it either about to happen, is happening. I can't pinpoint what's going on because here I am on my honeymoon and I'm like, nothing's going wrong, but I feel like everything's going wrong. What's going on in my head? So I sat up all that night, just terrified and just sick. And I ended up just having to sit in the shower and just let the hot water hit me. And I could not break out of it. Like I was hyperventilating, could not figure out what was going wrong. And so I ended up calling Mom and I'm like, hey, you got to pray for me because something's wrong. And I'm like, I don't know what it is, but something's not right. So, my mom says, okay, we're praying, like, call me if you need me, and, we'll wake up and we'll be there for you. Well, I think it was about 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm still up, still feeling like panic. And so I call her and I'm like, hey, no, this isn't, like, somebody has got to lay hands on me and pray for me because this is bad. This is real bad. And so I had seen, my brother has had panic attacks in his life. My sister has had panic attacks in her life, along with my niece and nephews. And so I assumed this is just me, me having a panic attack. Never had one in my life before. But I guess this is, a start for anything. So I could barely walk. I had to wake up Colin. He had to almost basically carry me down to my mom and dad's condo, and they prayed for me. And I have never had a worse sleep than I did that night. I would lay down and I would feel like I was dying, and I would wake up about every 5 minutes with just absolute fear and just dread, and just all I can do but describe it was a feeling of death. Like somebody around me had died, and I was just grieving, but I didn't know who died, and it was the weirdest feeling ever that I could describe. Well, the next day goes by, and I'm thinking, well, maybe it's just the trip, like maybe I'm just feeling weird from the trip or something, and I just need a good night's sleep. Well, the next day goes by, and it's gotten worse. It's gotten to the point that I believe we were on the 9th floor of the balcony, or 9th floor of the condo. And I remember laying in bed and seriously considering jumping off that balcony, because I felt that was as bad as I felt. I thought death would feel better than this right now, because I have never felt as bad as I do right now. And I considered jumping off the balcony, because I thought, I can't take this. I thought prayer would take this away, and it didn't. And so at this point, I'm just feeling terrible, and I know something's wrong. So Colin carries me to the hospital in Gulf Shores. And they ended up giving me they said it was a type of anxiety medicine. I think it ended up being kind of equivalent to a Benadryl. And they were like, this should make you feel better. You should feel better after this. Well, as soon as I leave the hospital, I thought, okay, I think I do feel a little bit better. This medicine should help me. And I realized as soon as I got in the car, nope, medicine's not helping me. And I just start breaking down in a full-out panic attack. And I told Colin, I said, I feel crazy. I feel like I am a crazy woman. I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't know why I'm freaking out, why I have fear, but I have such an immense fear. And so we ended up meeting Mom at a Walmart parking lot. I kind of get myself together, and she was trying to pick up my medicine from the Walmart pharmacy up there. And once again, I was having panic attacks probably about every 15 minutes. And so I got in the car, and we met her at Walmart, Mom and them at Walmart, and I told Colin, I'm like, call Mom. You gotta call Mom. So we sat in the parking lot, and Mom comes, and that was probably the worst panic attack I've had out of all the panic attacks of then. So it lasted probably about good 5 to 10 minutes of just hyperventilating and feeling like I thought I was gonna pass out. My hands went numb. My heart's beating out of my chest. Like I can't breathe at this point. Like I can't catch my breath. And so they all prayed for me, and I can't break out of this panic attack. So Mom ends up calling my pastor, Brother Jake, and so she calls him. He prays over me, and I kind of break out of it. I'm kind of out of the panic attack. So after a while, I took some medicine that they gave me from the hospital, and I was finally able to eat for the first time in over 24 hours, because that 24 hours I couldn't eat anything or anything like that, or drink anything at that point. And so I felt better. I didn't feel great, but I didn't feel like dying. I still was getting anxious thoughts, but at least I could function. And so I lasted probably till the end of that honeymoon that I didn't feel like dying, but at the same time, I felt awful. I felt like I was just being carried around place to place, and like I wasn't happy. I was unhappy. And in the moments when I wasn't having anxiety attacks, I was scared that I was going to get anxiety attacks. And sometimes that would feed into the other, and I would have an anxiety attack for having fear about having an anxiety attack. It was a mess. So we get back to home, and I think, okay, well, maybe it was Gulf Shores. I don't know. Like at this point, I don't know what's going on with me. And I'm thinking, well, maybe it was Gulf Shores. Maybe that was the reason why I was going through all that anxiety. So we get back home, and I think I was home for an hour, and I ended up having to go to my sister's house. And as soon as I walked through that door, anxiety attack. And it was horrible. And so I'm the song leader at our church, and so I go to church the next following Sunday and getting ready to do song service, and hits me again. And I'm outside in the parking lot, just laid out in the parking lot, having another anxiety attack. And so it was getting to the point where I daily, all day long, was hyperventilating with fear all the time. Fear. The worst thoughts you could be having thoughts that I couldn't control. And I ended up, even at one point, we had a live that we were supposed to do at work, and I ended up having an anxiety attack just within, I think, 30 minutes of the live, and I was out in the yard of the shop, and Bub had to come get me and pray for me because I couldn't stop having them. It was like all the time. I just felt like dying. I felt like I remember waking up every single morning and wishing I was dead. I wanted so bad to be dead because it was awful. It was terrifying to feel like I was never going to break out of it. I felt like it was something that I was being punished for. I thought, this is it. I messed up. I thought, this is it. I've messed up. I sinned too many times against God, and this is it. There's no turning back from this. God doesn't want me, and this is Him punishing me, saying, basically, I'm done with you. And so I felt like that. And then I felt like I couldn't even ask people to pray for me, because at that point, I felt like, why bother? Why bother asking? When I knew that I was living in sin, why would he help me if He knew that I was living in sin? And so I had no hope at all. And I would try to pray, and I would try to read, and it brought me no peace. I mean, I was in a terrible place. And so after a while, with my mom and my sister praying, and they would talk to me about God, and they would try to encourage me. But at that point, I felt like I didn't even want to talk about God. The thought of God it gave me more anxiety. And when I'm already having anxiety in the first place, like, God's the last thing I want to be talking about. Like, I know that you're trying to encourage me and help me, but this isn't helping me, because all I'm thinking, when you mention God, all I'm thinking is, you failed Him, this is why you're feeling this way. And then I started feeling like, how do I fix this? Because I know I can't live this way my entire life. So they ended up putting me, I go to another doctor, and they ended up putting me on another type of anxiety medicine. This is supposed to be a long-term anxiety medicine that doesn't make me sleepy all the time. It was called sertraline. My sister had taken it, and so I thought, this will be good for me. It'll break me out of it. No, It didn't. It caused more anxiety attacks. So I've went through medication after medication, all these different breathing tricks, everything you can imagine to fix me having anxiety attacks. I've went through it. I've tried them all. Nothing's working. I'm thinking, okay, how do I fix this with God? I've got to fix everything so God will forgive me, and so that maybe He'll take me back. I hope He'll take me back. And so I started getting awful thoughts. I'm thinking, okay, Christian, the reason you're having anxiety is you got married. Maybe God didn't want you to get married. Maybe it's because you've sinned so much. Maybe He wants you to do all these things so you can fix it. Because repenting, even though I repented immediately after having anxiety attacks. I repented, and I truly felt like I needed God because I was going through such a hard time. But I felt like repenting wasn't enough. I felt like I had to do it all on my own. I had to fix my mistakes. And so I'm having all these awful thoughts about how do you fix it? How do you fix it? How do you fix it? That it was overwhelming. I didn't know how to fix any of my past mistakes. I wanted to fix my past mistakes, but I didn't know how. And so that would send me an anxiety in itself. I went to Monday at Lamar's Bible study. And I remember I did not want to be there. I had a panic attack just before, didn't want to be there. I already felt anxious, and I thought, great, I'm going to feel anxious and I'm going to have a panic attack at this Bible study. Like, I feel sick. I don't want to be here. So I showed up anyways. I felt awful. Everyone else was having a good time. Colin had a good time. It looked like everyone was having fun. Meanwhile, I'm dreading life. And so we ended up going through, I believe it was Ephesians 6. And it was talking about your spiritual armor, basically. And so, mind blown. I'm sitting here reading these things, and I'm like, wait, we have spiritual armor? Like, here I am, I'm out in the war. I'm in the war right now, and I got nothing. Like, I'm trying everything, and the devil's defeating me left and right. I pray, anxiety attack. I read the Bible, anxiety attack. Like, we have things to fight these things. So I remember being mad, angry mad. I remember leaving that Bible study and just screaming. And I was saying, look at what the devil has stole from me. Like, the devil has stole my happiness. He stole, my peace. And I remember saying, I'm done with it. I'm done with feeling this way. And I didn't know how I was going to fix it, but I knew that, like, I had to rely on God. I had to fully rely on God, and He would fix it. So I started reading a bunch of devotionals all the time and reading my Bible as well. And it finally, after reading, I believe I was reading The Chatterbox by Stephen Furtick, and it finally occurred to me that there was a thing called condemnation. And that is a thing where you feel like you have to fix it all. So you have to reverse all your mistakes. Even though you repented, it's not good enough, that you're going to go to hell anyways. What's the point? You might as well just give up. Condemnation. That comes from Satan. There's a difference between conviction and there's a difference between condemnation. In my brain, those two things are the exact same thing. So I start realizing that this dread, this guilt that was over my life was not coming from God. God was not causing that dread at all. And I realized that dread was coming from Satan. And so I would have these thoughts and like feeling like I was in a panic all the time, that I wrote down my worst fears. And I found scriptures that would counteract every one of those fears. And I ended up having to place this picture on my cell phone so that every time I would feel fearful, I could look at my phone and say, what thought is it? No, this is what the Bible says about that thought. And that might sound very childish to some people, but I truly think that was the breaking point for me. And so I would do that and speak these truths over my life and say, no, I'm not going to feel this way. This is what God says about these things. Well, it took a long time. I wish I could tell you that overnight I was healed from anxiety, but I wasn't. I wasn't healed from anxiety at all. I sat and I would fight the devil every night and every morning with the same things. And I would get up and speak these truths over my life and then feel fearful, and I'd fight it. And I would speak truths over my life. And finally I realized, I don't know what took me so long to grasp it, that God loves me and that He's not angry at me. And that when I repented, that was it. I didn't have to fight it at all. But that was it. That was all He wanted from me. And He would do all the work after that. And so I realized that my whole life, it was basically, it was good that I was following God, or at least following His rules, but it was pointless when you realize that you're not doing it because of God's love and because you want to have a relationship with Him. And even more so, God wanted to have a relationship with me. He didn't want to just make me obey these laws and to not sin. That's not the point. The point was that sin was harming me. Sin had a hold of me. Not sinning is not something against us. Not sinning is to help us. Sin is bad for us. And so to find out that God loves you and that He's not just punishing you, He's not just saying not to do these things so you won't have fun. He's not just saying these things just so He could be a God and just be over you and just to govern you. He's doing it because He loves you. And He wants to have a relationship with you and to know you as a friend. And to know God as a friend is so transforming on your walk with Him. My entire life, that's why I couldn't walk with Him and why I couldn't follow Him for more than a week at a time. Because it wasn't based on an act of love. It was based on I've got to do this again. Not because, God, I want to do this for you. I want to know you. And so, after finding that out, it took a while. It took June passed, July passed, August passed, and I was still having anxiety. But slowly, I would slowly be able to get off the anxiety medicine. And it might be one day, and it might be 3 days, and then it would go to a week. But finally, I'm no longer on anxiety medicine. I don't have anxiety. And I wanted to tell y'all that the people who feel like they can't come back, the people who feel like maybe they're consumed with anxiety, maybe they just feel like they have to fix everything before coming back to God. That's not the case. I couldn't fix myself. Medicine couldn't even help me. Nothing could help me except for God. And then God fixed it. That's all He wants from you. He doesn't want you to fix it and then come to Him. That's not how it works. You can't even do it. You can't do it. So you have to just be obedient. Just say, God, this is it. I am a messy person. I'm not what I would want if I was a God. This is not what I would want. This is a mess. But God doesn't care. He loves to use the mess. He loves to use the things that we don't think that he would use. The things that we say, that's trash, it's over with. Why would you even use that? And God will use it. And so I'm just so thankful for God. I'm still learning. And I wish I could tell you that there's some days that I don't have anxiety, but there is some days that there's some things might trigger me to feel a little bit worried, but that's how Satan works. He wants to take he wants to take you down. He wants you to think that this is it, and for you to be left there in your sin. But I ended up, this past week, I had bought a shirt online that has said, God saved me on the same road I took to avoid him. That's me. That's it. I did not want God. And for him to want somebody who doesn't want him, how soul-crushing that has to be on him. But how much celebration there probably was when I did come back to him. And so I'm just so thankful. I'm a crying mess, but I'm thankful that he gave me this testimony. And I knew that he couldn't just sit here. I knew he couldn't sit here with me. I knew that it's going to be out here. Some people might think of me as an idiot for posting this. Some people might think, oh, she'd be ugly when she cries, and that's okay too. But it can't sit here with me. And so this is it. That was the death of Christian, and then a new life. There's a new life that began. So I just want to encourage y'all and to encourage you to share your own testimony. I know that sitting in front of a camera might be weird to share your testimony, but share it with somebody. Don't let it sit with you. Allow God's light to shine, because that was the whole purpose. That's the whole purpose of God bringing me out of that. So, yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching, and I guess thanks for staying until the end to hear it.